Today we start a new series discussing the 13 principles of faith. And we're going to go through a lot of detail over here, so it's good to have notes and keep notes. But if you don't have notes, you can watch it again and again, as many times as you want, on Torah Anytime. And you can take your time watching it. So this video is going to be on Torah Anytime. So I just want to start off with a story, nice story I said yesterday, very nice story about the Rabbi. Rabbi gets a pussycat. And the pussycat climbs up the tree, gets stuck up the tree. And the Rabbi's trying to get this pussycat down. He puts a bowl of milk, doesn't want to come down, puts some food, chicken, fish, nothing. The pussycat's stuck on the tree. So Rabbi has a bright idea. He takes a rope and he ties the tree to his car, back of his car. And this way he can pull the tree down so he can get the cat. So he moves the car, the tree comes down a little bit, comes out, can't reach. Pull the tree a bit more, can't reach. Goes a bit more, the rope snaps.
And he's in a broken car.
And the tree goes, and the cat goes flying far away. He's looking all over for his cat. He can't find the cat. Cat's gone. A few days later, he sees one of his congregants in the store buying cat food. He says, I know you don't like cats. What are you doing with cat food? So Rabbi, you never believe the story. My daughter loves cats. She wants a cat. She's been telling me she wants a cat, wants a cat, wants a cat. And the other day she was outside in the yard praying, Hashem, give me a cat. All of a sudden the cat flies from the sky and lands in the backyard. The Rabbi says, oh boy, that must be my cat. But we see over there that some people's loss is other people's gain. That's what you see. Some people's loss, other people's gain. And the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avot, there were 10 generations between Noach and Abraham, and they did bad things. And Abraham got reward corresponding to all of them. He took all their reward. Why? Because there's certain reward for certain generations for doing the right thing. No one was doing the right thing. Who was doing the right thing? Abraham Avinu. He gets their reward, so that they lose and he gains. And we see over here an interesting concept. We see this concept also. It says, if a person comes the first 10 in the minyan, they get reward corresponding to everyone in the minyan. Imagine. So if you have 200 people in the minyan, the first 10 get reward of all 200. Everyone gets reward. But they get corresponding to everyone. In other words, they get 200 times as much as reward. It's amazing. Anyway, today we're going to start this topic of the 13 principles of faith, which is very topical based on the parasha we just did, of Lech Lecha, because it says by Abraham Avinu that he believed in Hashem. Abraham Avinu believed in Hashem, and it was considered for him, it was considered tzedakah. It was considered righteousness. I find the first time it's mentioned the word tzedakah. It's in this week's parasha, that's in yesterday's parasha, Lech Lecha. That was considered his, Abraham Avinu's belief in God was considered tzedakah, was considered righteousness. And in fact, that word clings to Abraham Avinu, because he's going to teach his sons after him tzedakah umishpat. He's going to teach his sons righteousness and justice. So righteousness is a very important word. We get the word tzaddik from righteousness. And the Rambam wrote 13 principles of faith based on a famous Mishnah, which we say every day in our prayers. We say partially, which we're going to quote. In the Mishnah, it's chapter 10 of Sanhedrin. So it's important to know. Sanhedrin, chapter 10 in the Mishnah. For some reason, the Talmud puts it in chapter 11. So this Mishnah is in chapter 10 in the Mishnah, and chapter 11 in the Talmud. And the Mishnah, it says, Kol Yisrael yesh lahem cherek le'olam haba. Every single Jew has a portion in the world to come. Yay. Every single Jew has a portion in the world to come. Don't get too excited yet. As it says, V'amech kulam tzadikim. Your nation are all righteous. Again, the word tzadikim. Le'olam yushuatz. They will forever inherit the land. Which land is inherited forever? That's olam haba. Oh. Okay? So land which is inherited forever, we don't live forever. So land which is inherited forever is talking about the next world. Olam haba is the world which is inherited forever. No, it's talking about the world to come. Because Israel, we live over here temporarily, we don't live there permanently. This world is just the corridor, the Mishnah says, in front of the next world. We're right here in the corridor. We're traveling. It looks like a permanent place, but it's a corridor. It's a temporary abode. Anyone who gets older will know it's just temporary. I mean, everything, your life flashes in front of you. I did this and I did this. Your life just flashes in front of you. Before you know it's over. Today it's a bell curve. You know what a bell curve is? Yeah. It goes up and it goes up and up and up and it goes down and down, 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 down. Life is a bell curve. We go up, we grow, and then hopefully it's a slow descent, not a big descent, not a fast descent. So it's very important. So all Israel, a portion of the world to come. Thy people shall all be righteous. They shall inherit the land forever. The branch of my planting, the work of my hands, that I be glorified. Okay, that's the pasuk which the Mishnah is quoting. And then the Mishnah continues, and this is the part we don't say, for good reason. We don't say because it's discouraging. And the following have no share in the world to come.
The following what?
Have no share in the world to come. So we say all Jews have a share in the world to come, and then it says except for, and this part we don't say. Except for who? Except for what? Number one, a person who says there is no resurrection of the dead. A person says, I don't believe in the resurrection of the dead. Wow. I don't believe in the dead are going to get up again. It's interesting, we do a burial, it's not considered burial.
If they don't believe in that means they don't believe in God.
Exactly. And therefore they have no portion, the Mishnah says, they have no portion in the world to come. A person says, I don't believe in the resurrection of the dead, has no portion in the world to come. It's very comforting. When you bury someone, you're not really burying them, you're planting them.
Right.
You don't bury someone, we don't bury people, we plant people. Eventually they're going to get up. And we have to believe in that. It's one of the 13 principles of faith. We say every day in our tefillah, right? In the Shemona Esrei, Baruch Atah Hashem Mechayeh Hametim, the dead will arise. So we're going to see this is one of the sources the Rambam uses to make his 13 principles of faith, and that's why he writes on his commentary in the Mishnah, the 13 principles of faith right here on this Mishnah. Because this Mishnah is telling us, if you don't believe in certain principles, you're not going to get the world to come. Rabbi Akiva says, a person who reads the heretical books, okay, heretical books, which you're going to see, which were books of Greek philosophy, denying God's presence, denying the presence of God. One who whispers a charm over a wound. Okay, I'm not going to go to the different things. But we see over here, this is the Rambam says, I'm just going to quote you another Rambam. Rambam says, I have seen fit to speak here of many fundamental principles dealing with the basic tenets of faith, which are of great importance. So in this Mishnah, I'm going to give you the different principles of faith, which a person has to, which every Jew has to believe in. Okay? So this is a very important Rambam over here. Before we even go to this Rambam, we're going to have a long series on this Rambam. Let's go back to the book called Chovot HaLevavot. Chovot HaLevavot is a book called Duties of the Heart, written by Rabbi Ibn Pakuda in the beginning of the 11th century. It's one of the first books of ethics written in Jewish history. First book of ethics written in Jewish history is a book, Chovot HaLevavot. The obligations and the duties of the heart.
Who's it by?
Bachya Ibn Pakuda. Rabbeinu Bachya, Rabbi Bachya, the son of Yosef Ibn Pakuda. Okay. So it's written in Arabic and translated to English. Today you can get it in English and Hebrew in a two-volume set by Feldheim, called The Duties of the Heart. The first section is very, very hard to understand because it's philosophy. If you're a good philosophy major, you can study it in detail. The second section is very important because it's more practical. It talks about bitachon, trust in God and other things. So I just want to quote you a little bit. So duties of the heart. What do you mean duties of the heart? So he says there's two kinds of mitzvot, which is very important to know this. There are two kinds of mitzvot. Obviously you can break mitzvot into different categories. Right. There are two sections of mitzvot. One obligation is obviously obligation of the body. A mitzvah which has to be done with your body. For example, to give tzedakah, it's an obligation on you, on your body, to give tzedakah. You can't give tzedakah on your head. You can give tzedakah with your hands. A mitzvah to light Shabbat candles, which is a mitzvah from the rabbis. To light Shabbat candles. A mitzvah on your body, obviously, it's not a mitzvah on your head. You can't say I did it in my head. Right? A mitzvah to have kiddush, make kiddush. It's a mitzvah on your body, it's not a mitzvah on your head. But there are certain mitzvot which apply in your head. We know, we talked about this in our series on the 6 constant mitzvot, right? There are 6 mitzvot a person can do in the head every second of the day, 24/7. So a person has a sleepless night. What do you do in your bed? And the answer is, you do the 6 constant mitzvot. What are the 6 constant mitzvot? Let's just recap. Number 1.
Belief in God.
Belief in God, excellent. Belief in God. Number 2. Not to believe in any other gods. So just by saying a person says, I believe in God. Which one? So number 1. Number 2 is, I'm not allowed to believe in any other God. Number 3 is, I believe in one God. Number 4 is the mitzvah to love God. Number 5 is the mitzvah to fear God. And number 6 is the mitzvah not to go after one's heart and one's eyes. These are mitzvot that apply 24/7. Right? And these are mental mitzvot. So there are certain mitzvot which are obligations, that's what he says, duties of the heart, which are mitzvot which apply in your brain, as opposed to mitzvot which are practical mitzvot. So there's 2 kinds of mitzvot. There's practical mitzvot which are obligatory, which are you have to do. And there are certain mitzvot which apply in your head, which you have to believe. So there's a very, very beautiful way of thinking about it. So he calls that duties of the heart. Vehem hamatzpunim, these are hidden mitzvot.
Are you saying duties?
Duties.
Duties.
D-U-T-I-E.
D-U-T-I-E-S. Duties. Obligation, in other words.
Yeah, obligation.
So there's a mitzvot which are hidden. It's amazing. You'll never know if a person's doing them or not. Only person knows inside his head if he believes in God really or not. Person may be doing all the mitzvah in the world. But I had a case, someone asked me, she says, I know someone who doesn't believe in God but does the mitzvah anyway.
Many people.
Is that good or bad? And the answer is, it's not a mitzvah then.
Right.
Because a mitzvah means a command. To have a command, you need to have a commander. If there's no commander, there's no command. So it's not a mitzvah. What is it?
Just a habit.
It's right. Hopefully it'll have an impact.
It's a habit.
And so it's Jewish culture. I'm doing it because of Jewish culture, but I don't believe in God. Okay, but it's not a mitzvah. It's culture, but it's not mitzvah. So to make something a mitzvah means a command. You have to believe in the commander. And the commander-in-chief is God. God is the commander. So it's hidden. You'll never know what people think in their head. Okay, so it's interesting. So this concept that there's mitzvot, physical mitzvot, tangible physical mitzvot, and there's mitzvot which apply in one's brain, which are hidden mitzvot. Okay, so the first mitzvah, this is Chovat Levavot. This is the obligations of the heart. There's a mitzvah of the book called The Duties of the Heart. Shena'amin ki yesh le'olam boreh bira'o me'ayin. That you have to believe that there's a creator in the world who created the world from nothing. She'en kamo, there's nothing like him. And the next one is to believe that there is one God. Okay, so this is the Chovat Levavot. So we find over here there's an obligation in one's head, one's heart. These are not things which you can see. Okay, so there's the duties that you can see, the mitzvot you can see the person can do, and there's mitzvot you can't see the person is doing. There's revealed mitzvot and there's hidden mitzvot. So the mitzvot on the person's body are revealed mitzvot, and the mitzvot which on a person's head are hidden mitzvot. Interesting. So there's two categories of mitzvot: hidden mitzvot and revealed mitzvot. So we are obligated to do both hidden mitzvot and revealed mitzvot. Okay, so good. That's duties of the heart. And this week's parasha Lech Lecha, it says, Ve'emin ba'Hashem. Abraham Avinu believed in God. Ve'emin ba'Hashem. We have to discuss what that means. What does belief mean? Belief. Most people think belief. There's an obligation to believe in God. We have to understand what that means. Okay, so we're going to talk about that. Ve'emin ba'Hashem v'yachshaveh lo tzedakah. And he placed his whole confidence in God, and this was reckoned to him for righteousness. Hashem reckoned his belief in God as righteousness. God rewarded Abraham for his belief in God. So Rav Samson fell hush on this pasuk, and this the last week's parasha Lech Lecha. Emunah is not belief. This Rav Samson fell hush.
It's trust.
Belief is an act of the mind. Is only an opinion. The person says, I believe in this, and you believe in that. It's an opinion. Belief is an opinion, and therefore emunah does not mean belief.
What does it mean?
Let's come to it. So belief is an opinion. Is always only believing something to be true by reason of judgment and the assurance of someone else. In making religion into a belief, and then making the cardinal point of religion believing in the truth of these theses, religion has been banned from everyday life and made into a catechism of words of belief, which will be demanded as a passport for entering the next world. Hear that? So it's not belief.
So what is he saying?
I'll tell you. So what is he saying? It's a concept of amen. Emunah comes from the word amen.
Right.
Amen means it's true. It's different from belief. I believe it's just an opinion. I believe in this. You believe in this. That's an opinion. But I know it's true. That's emunah. It's much more definite than just believing. It's definite. We're going to see the Rambam also. We're going to see. He says the verbal concept of amen is based on the practical concept of ma'aseh yadeh uman. What's an uman in Hebrew? Artisan. An artisan. It's an artisan makes. He does something physical. That's belief. Belief is something definite. It's not something which is just an opinion. So to translate emunah as belief is false, he says. This is Rav Samson Avash. It's much more solid than just belief. It's knowledge. It's a solid knowledge, like making something. Actually actively making something firm. It's firm. It's solid. I believe in God. It means it's a solid belief. It's not just an opinion. So to translate as a belief is not really, it's more than belief. It's not just truth in theory, it's also truth in practice, in deed, in loyalty and faithfulness. That's emunah. So it's not just my belief. It's not just my opinion. He says you just reduce religion to just beliefs. It's not belief. It's knowledge. I know there's a God. Okay. Let's move on to the Rambam. There's two Rambams over here. There's a Rambam. The Rambam wrote 3 books. How many books did he write? He wrote the commentary of the Mishnah,
Right.
which was written in Arabic, unfortunately, because it had to be translated to Hebrew, and a lot was lost in the translation. So there's many translations. He wrote his Sefer Mitzvot.
Language Arabic?
Well, what he did, he wrote for the masses, and the masses spoke Arabic. So he wrote beautiful Hebrew, but he wrote for the masses. So he wrote everything in Arabic. So
Well,
he
he was doing it when he was in...
4 books. He had 4 books. Rambam wrote 4 books.
Well, where was he living at the time?
Okay, so he lived in different places. His bar mitzvah present was exile from Spain, from Cordoba.
Right.
If you go to Cordoba today, you'll find a beautiful statue of the Rambam over there, because they loved dead Jews. The Spanish loved dead Jews. For every dead Jew, they make a nice statue. A nice statue for a dead Jew, a living Jew, they throw him out. But the dead Jew, they love dead Jews. Everyone loves dead Jews. They make a statue for dead Jews, museums for dead Jews, no problem. But to have a live Jew walking around is a big problem. So dead Jews they love. So the Rambam's statues in Cordoba, he was thrown out of Cordoba by the Muslims. Because at that time Spain was under the Muslims. The Almohads, the fierce Muslims came and they conquered Spain. And his father Maimun, who was his teacher, Maimun was a Dayan. He took the whole family, they ran away to Morocco. And they lived in a place called Fez, which is a very big, famous city.
Okay, Turkey.
Fez, that's where Rabbi Al-Fassi came from, Fez. And over there, it's interesting, the Jews were all Marranos. They all converted to Islam. And the rabbi was the imam of the mosque. And they had a yeshiva and everything, but they were practicing Jews. But in name, they had to be Muslims. You can't live over there unless you're Muslim. So it's very strange. So he lived there for a few years. And he wrote over there his Igeret Hashmad, his letter about apostasy.
That makes sense.
Are you allowed to convert to Islam to save your life?
Since he was working with...
He was there. And that was a major question. So there was an opinion that says no, and therefore a lot of Jews were stuck. Am I going to die, or am I going to just become a Muslim? As Rambam writes this letter of apostasy, he says Islam is not idolatry, and therefore you do not have to give your life. You can say, I believe in it, because you believe in one God.
Right.
It's not idolatry, and then you have to run away as soon as possible and take out your Judaism again. So that's basically what he wrote, and by doing that, he saved a lot of Jews. He saved a lot of Jews, otherwise they would just have to die. They would just have to die, basically. So he wrote that you don't have to give your life. You can convert and then run away and revert to your Judaism somewhere else. And that's what he did. He ran away. Where did he run away to? They ran away to Israel first. 6 months they lived in Israel, and there was nothing there. There was no economy. It was under the Crusades were still going on. The Christians and the Muslims were fighting in Israel. Any Jew, they'd kill him or they'd ransom him off. And therefore he ran away. From there he ran to Cairo.
That's right, it's Egypt.
Old Cairo. And that's where he lived for many years. And that's where he wrote most of his works.
That's where he probably did most of his writing.
Yes, that's where he wrote his works. Except for the commentary of the Mishnah, he says he wrote mainly from memory on his travels. Can you imagine? He knew the whole Talmud to be able to write a commentary of the Mishnah. Anyway, so most of his works were written in Arabic, except for the Yesod HaTorah, which is his Mishnah Torah, the Yad HaZakah. So there were 4 main works. What are the 4 main works? Number 1 is his commentary of the Mishnah, his Sefer HaMitzvot, which is all the 613 mitzvot, the book about 630 mitzvot. He wrote a book called Moreh Nevuchim, which is philosophy, which got him into trouble later on. The Guide to the Perplexed, right? Mm-hmm. Which got him into trouble in France, and they put him in Cherem. We're going to talk about some other time. We're going to talk about that on Shabbat. This Shabbat, we have a class on the Rambam's controversy, the controversies of the Rambam. They put him into Cherem. They burnt his books. Terrible things. This Shabbat at 4:15. Okay, if you want to be here. I'll give you a choice. Okay, you want to be here, you'll be in spirit. Okay. And number 4 is, he wrote his Yad HaZakah or Mishneh Torah in beautiful Hebrew, and I'm going to quote you both of them. So it's Sefer HaMitzvot, and we're going to see a big mistake which is in the translation from the Arabic. Big mistake. And this big mistake, a lot of ink has been spilled trying to explain the mistake. But it's a mistake. If you know the Arabic, you'll find out it's a mistake. We're going to see. So in his Sefer HaMitzvot, which was written in Arabic and translated, I'm going to read you the translation. This is the first mitzvah in the Rambam's 630 mitzvah. What is the first mitzvah? Hu etzivui, the command, asher tzivanu v'hamanat halakut, to believe in God. Mm-hmm. So the word he uses over there is belief. Okay? That's the Arabic translation. Hu shena'amin sheyesh sham ilat, there's a supreme being, v'sibahu po'el l'chol emsayim, and he calls everything which is created. And how do we learn this? Where is this mitzvah mentioned in the Torah? The first of the 10 Commandments, Anochi Hashem Elokecha. I am the Lord your God. And Rambam says this is a mitzvah to believe in God. Now, if you read the Ten Commandments, the first commandment does not seem like a mitzvah.
That's not like
It doesn't say you will have to believe in me. It just says, announcement, I am the Lord your God, who took you out of the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. Rambam says that is a mitzvah. To believe in God is a mitzvah. We're going to see there's many commentators who say it's not a mitzvah, it's a pre-mitzvah.
Then why would we call it a commandment? It's a pre-mitzvah.
Rabbi Yosef Albo, very, very famous philosopher, 2 centuries after the Rambam, he says it's a pre-mitzvah. What does that mean, pre-mitzvah?
That's what I'm saying.
In other words, it's a preface to the mitzvah. In other words, everyone agrees you cannot have a mitzvah without a commander.
Right.
So now, believing in the commander, is that a mitzvah or is that a pre-mitzvah? In other words, you have to believe in the commander to know there's mitzvah. So he doesn't count as one of the 613, it's a pre-mitzvah. You have to believe in God, and then you can believe in the commands. But Rambam makes it into a mitzvah. Rambam makes it much simpler. He makes it into a mitzvah. Anochi Hashem Elokecha, the 10 commandments. The Torah does not call them 10 commandments. What does the Torah say? Aseret HaDivrot. Very good. 10 sayings. It doesn't say 10 commandments. The Rambam counts as 13 commandments. It's not 10 commandments. If you look at the commandments, they're split. The 10 sayings, 10 sayings, it's misnomer. 10 commandments are misnomer. The 10 sayings, some people say 13 commandments, some people say 14 commandments. But it's 10 sayings. So the first saying, is that a mitzvah? Is not a mitzvah. Is the first saying a mitzvah or not? Rambam says it is. Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am the Lord your God, means it's a mitzvah to believe in me. That's what we learn out. Mitzvah to believe in a supreme being who created everything. And now we move to Hilchot Yesodei HaTorah, which is the Rambam Mishnah Torah, which I have over here, one section. And over here he writes, in clear, beautiful Hebrew, this is not a translation, this is a real source, Yesod HaYesodot, the foundation of all foundations. V'amud HaChomot, and the pillar of wisdom. Look at this. That spells out Yud Kei Vav Kei. Yesod starts with a Yud. HaYesodot, the foundation, starts with a Hey. Ve'amud starts with a Vav. HaChochmot starts with a Hey, Yud Kei Vav Kei. You have God's name right there. Yesod HaYesodot, Ve'amud HaChochmot. Nedat, to know, not to believe. To know, Sheyesh Sham Matzui Rishon, to know there is a creator. So we have a contradiction over here. In the Sefer HaMitzvot, which is a translation, it says to believe in a creator. In this Yesod HaTorah, which he wrote in Hebrew, it says to know there's a creator. Which one is stronger, and to know or to believe?
No.
To know. So we have a contradiction over here. So let me just tell you what answers this contradiction. There's so much written about this contradiction. The truth is not a contradiction at all. Why not?
To know him is to believe in him.
It's not a contradiction because when he said to believe, it's not really him. It's a translation of what he wrote in Arabic. So it's a mistranslation. In Arabic, he wrote to know. It was translated as to believe.
The first one he really meant.
Both of them must to know. Both of them, in the original, both of them are to know. They're just mistranslated as to believe. Oy, oy, oy. And so many different people had to give explanations why there's a contradiction in the Rambam. So Rav Chaim Brisk, I can't find it right now, I'll just say it by, and we'll get to it. Okay, Rav Chaim Brisk, he loved Rambam. Rav Chaim Brisk wrote a commentary on the Rambam, learned in all the yeshivot. And it's very deep commentary. You can spend your life learning Rav Chaim Brisk. Very complicated, very complex on the Rambam. But a lot of the things that he discussed, contradictions in the Rambam, were either mistranslations, or some of them were just mistaken, scribal mistakes. Mm-hmm. If you look at the original Rambam, you'll find there's no error, there's no question, because it's the real version has got no mistake in it. So, anyway, so here he says that first you start with belief, and then you get to knowledge. Mm-hmm. As a lower level is belief. A person starts with belief. I believe there's a God. That's my opinion. But eventually, you've got to end off with knowledge. Okay, a person's got to know there's a God, not just believe there's a God. It's not just an opinion. I know for a fact there's a God. Right? So a person's got to get to that stage. Anyway, the truth is that there's no contradiction. They're both talking about knowledge of God. Just one was a mistranslation. That's my opinion. And I've heard this opinion many times by scholars. The most recent translation is translated by Rabbi Kapach. Have you heard of Rabbi Kapach? No. Very famous Dayan in Yerushalayim. He was a Yemenite who knew Arabic, and he retranslated Rambam's works. Mm-hmm. There's a modern translation from the original Arabic. He didn't take the translation of Ibn Tibbon and others, and he translated it again. He went right back to the Arabic, and he understood Arabic, and he could translate back. So again, it's translated as to know, not to believe. So there's no contradiction over here. So the mitzvah is to know there's a God, not to believe in God. It's not just an opinion, it's a knowledge. It's got to be clear knowledge. How does a person get to that knowledge? A person's going to do what's called hakira drisha. You got to learn about science and nature and figure out for yourself. There's no question. The odds of there being no God are much greater than the odds of being a God. You know that? Scientifically. Mathematical odds of being a God are much more realistic than being no God. How the universe come about. The chances of that happening are just trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions to one. Impossible! All these different variables coming together to create man are just impossible. It's impossible. The odds of it are just mathematically impossible. It's much more logical to say there's a God. Much more reasonable to say there's a God, because otherwise it's impossible.
Rabbi,
So, yes.
when we start teaching children and you just teach them Shema Yisrael, or you teach them Hashem is here, Hashem is there, is that you're inculcating in them belief? You can't inculcate in them knowledge.
Right, right. So knowledge comes
And
later.
you hear a little kid say something.
Knowledge
like,
comes later. Knowledge comes later. But the trouble is, if you inculcate belief with the knowledge, in other words, you have to try and inculcate, there's no doubts in your belief. In other words, you tell the kid there's a God. It's knowledge. I'm giving you my knowledge. I know there's a God, and I want you to know there's a God, not just to believe there's a God. So the kid grows up knowing there's a God. How do I know there's a God? My father told me there's a God. I know from my father's knowledge, and that's how we're raised. We know based on other people's knowledge. So there's smarter people than us who figured it out. And we have to refigure everything out. But it's better for you to do it yourself. The trouble is a person can get lost on the way. That's the trouble. So a person says, I'm still figuring it out. Is there a God or not? I'm still figuring it out. No, there is a God. What are you talking about? There's a God. The chances of not being a God are impossible, basically. Okay, so we figured out there's no mitzvah of belief in God. There's a mitzvah of knowing God. Okay? Now we come to Ramchal. Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto. He wrote a book called Dat Tvunot. Ramchal was amazing. He wrote about 70 books, 60, 70 books. Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto. He was born in Italy. And he was like 17, 18 years old. He started getting prophecies. He started seeing angels. And he wasn't married, and he was learning Kabbalah and started teaching Kabbalah. And at that time, it was just after Shabbatai Tzvi. So people started getting scared. Here's another false Messiah in the making.
Yeah.
They put him in Cherem. They burnt his books. He had to get married, which is good. He got married finally, 28 years old, he got married.
Okay.
And he ran away to Holland. He ran away to Amsterdam, where he was a lens grinder. He was a lens grinder making glasses, the first glasses, telescopes, binoculars. He was a lens grinder to grind the lens to... Anyway.
What's his name again?
Moshe Chaim Luzzatto. Moshe Chaim Luzzatto. Ramchal he's called for short. He wrote The Path of the Just. You must have Mesilat Yesharim.
The book.
Mesilat Yesharim. He wrote 70 books, 60 to 70 books. Very prolific writer. He started at a very early age. He died at the age of 38.
Oy.
I mean, I don't know how he did it. So 38, he wrote 60, 70 books. He wrote these books in days. His mind was so full of knowledge. Just wrote a book. It's amazing. He wrote very deep books.
Do you have any kids?
Yes. Dat Vunot. He wrote a book called Dat Vunot. He says over there, Amar hasechel tchum yesh ledavar. Our minds are limited. Ad hecha navin. How far can we understand? Umehecha nechdal. And when do we stop to investigate? Our minds are limited to understand God. This is Ramchal explaining this. So it's hard to get to the bottom of knowledge of God. How can we understand God? We have no idea what God is. How can you understand God? You just have to know there's a God. There's a being that created this world. This world is impossible to come into being without a supreme being created. Okay. All right. So that's Ramchal. We did the Rambam. We did the Ramchal. I want to go into a little bit of Rav Volber over here. Rav Volber was a mashkiach of Be'er Yaakov, a very famous yeshiva in Israel, and he wrote books, many books. Alei Shor, B'diuk, Kacha. In the beginning, we rely on our rabbis, what they taught us. You know, it's exactly what you said, right? You can't fathom these things out for yourself. What do? So you rely on the rabbis. And also the feeling that we know there's a God. So even a kid is born with the feeling that there is a God. Little kids are born with this feeling there is a God. We don't need proofs for this. We don't lose, we don't give in to the feelings around us. And when our minds get stronger, we see the truth with our eyes. And that increases our emunah. Okay, so that's when the emunah becomes dat. So we start off with emunah, exactly what you said. We start off with this belief that there's a God, a feeling there's a God, and eventually with knowledge, we get to the point where we know there's a God. That's the progression that a person should have in their lives. A person says, I believe in God, I can't get to that next level. You still get there. A person's got to work on it. A person's got to read books about it, got to investigate, and find that there is a God. Okay. So that's the hard part. That's the hard part. Is to get to the stage where you know there's a God. And the truth is, you can't deny there's a God. You can say whatever you want. The fact is, God exists whether you like it or not. You can be a biggest atheist. A person can be the biggest atheist, but the fact is, God exists whether he believes in God or not. Right. The only difference is that the person themselves are guided by, it says, what does the Torah say? If you walk with me by happenstance and you believe everything is chance, your life will be chance.
Right.
Your life will be governed by chance. A person doesn't want their life to be governed by chance. Because the chances are things are going to happen. If you look at the statistics, things happen. So a person's life is governed by chance. So we want to walk with God. We don't want to walk with chance. Okay. So the way a person judges, the way a person behaves, that's the way God judges them. So if I walk with God with emunah, God says, I walk with you as well. You hold my hand, I hold your hand, Hashem says. But if you walk with me and you don't believe in me, I'll treat you the same way as chance. You'll be guided by natural causes. Your life will be one big natural cause. That's it. Okay. There's a lot of material. Just want to move on.
This is all the Rambam?
No, we talked about the Ramchal, Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto. We gave you a little bit of Rav Wolber. We gave you a bit of Chovat Levavot. Okay.
This is all pre-Rambam.
This is all before Rambam, right? All right, let's move on. So there's two approaches to emunah. One approach is what we learn from others and we receive from our previous generations, which was taught to us, and we accept it. So it's shmiyah, it's listening, and Kabbalah, it's listening and accepting. So we believe because that's how my father told me there's a God, and I accept it. So that's one level of... Now, Avraham Avinu never had that luxury. I have to remember that. Avraham Avinu's father, Terach, was an idol worshipper.
Right.
Avraham Avinu had to get to God through his own
That's number one.
recourses.
That's listening and accepting.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a low level. Low level is listening and accepting. But Avraham Avinu never had that luxury.
No.
So it says he started thinking at the age of 3. And it says at the end, Rambam says, he got to the age of 40 and he knew there was a God. So it took him 37 years of...
40?
40, age of 40, he realized, 100% sure there's a God. I know there's a God. At the age of 40, it took him 37 years of thinking to get to the stage from where his belief turned into knowledge. So the first stage is emunah. It's called emunah pshuta, simple belief. What's simple belief? This was given over to me by my parents. This was given over to me by my rabbis, and this is what I believe. That's it. Simple belief. That's simple belief. And the second stage is hakira yediyah. Hakira is delving into it and knowing it. Delving and knowing it, which is greater understanding and awareness. So if you have a deeper connection, if you delve into God, you get a deeper connection to God. The more you delve into it, it's hard to delve into it. And it's allowed to ask questions. Jews are allowed to ask questions. We're not allowed to deny God. We're allowed to ask questions. Why God? Why this? Why that? And David HaMelech asked, Lama azavtani? Eli, Eli, my God. Who said that? Lama azavtani, why have you left me? Some people say that's the mizmor for Purim. Because the rabbis say that was said by Esther. You can imagine Esther in the king's palace. Here's a Jewish girl, a from Jewish girl. Apparently she was a married woman also to marry to Mordechai. And she's taken by the king. And the king is, raping her every night, whatever it is. And think about it. She says, Eli, Eli, lama azavtani. Even though David HaMelech wrote it. He said, wrote it with Ruach HaKodesh, thinking about Esther. So it's allowed to ask the question, my God, why have you left me? And God did not leave her. Eventually there was a miracle that happened through her. And her son was the one who rebuilt the temple. So good things came out of it, but it's a tough situation she was in. So sometimes we think God has left us. And we're allowed to ask, God, why have you left us? We have to have the emunah that God did not leave you. You have to have the emunah. It's a question. We have to know that Hashem does not leave a person. It looks like Hashem. That's the test. And that's the test. Abraham Avinu survived 10 tests. And Rashi says over there, very famous Rashi says, his emunah was like a tzur halamish, was like a rock. In other words, all these 10 tests in his life never affected his belief or knowledge in God at all. But you can do whatever you want. There's no denying you, Hashem. Even though you can do this to me, you can do that to me, I still believe in you. You can't. There was a famous story in the Spanish expulsion of a Spanish Jew who was expelled from Spain. and lost his wife, his family. He's now in the desert. He's dying of starvation in the Moroccan desert. And he writes the last note. He says, Hashem, you can take my wife away, my family away. You can kill me. The only thing you can't take away from me is my belief in you. Because that's the way. That's the stage. There's a stage we have to go. That's Shema Yisrael. The person dies with Shema Yisrael because nothing else. You can't deny God. There's nothing you can do. You can rebel and say what you want, but there's no denying there's a God. There's no denying it. And so a person gets to a stage where it's so powerful, it's so deep in their psyche that you can't deny it. It's just... So 2 stages again. Shmiya and Kabbalah. Listening and accepting. And the second stage is Hakira, which is delving and knowing. So now the Yabbetz comes along. I don't agree with the Yabbetz. The Yabbetz is you have Yaakov ben Tzvi. Yaakov Emden ben Tzvi. You heard of Yaakov Emden, very famous Ashkenazi rabbi, whose father was Hacham Tzvi. His father's name was Hacham Tzvi. Why is he called Hacham Tzvi? Because he was an Ashkenazi rabbi in Amsterdam, and the Sephardim called him Hacham.
Why?
Because the Sephardim called the rabbis Hacham, and the Ashkenazim did not call them Hacham. So he was known Hacham Tzvi. He was the rabbi in Amsterdam. So his son, Rabbi Yaakov Emden, did a lot of research on Sephardim. In fact, the Sofrim who are Sephardim read I have to learn Rabbi Yaakov Emden's book. He writes about the shape of the Sephardic letters in the Torah. There's no other source. He's the source. He is the source. Here we have an Ashkenazi rabbi giving us the source of the shape of the Sephardic writing in the Torah.
Are they different?
Different, slightly. And the Shulchan Aruch, who's Sephardi, gives us the shape of the Ashkenazi letters. It's wild, don't ask me. It's like Hanukkah. The Sephardi we follow the opinion of Tosfot, and the Ashkenazi follow the opinion of Rambam. So it's very okay. Sometimes happens. Okay. So anyway, so it's interesting. So the Yabbetz says the individuals in the expulsion of Spain who converted to Christianity was because their emunah, their faith in God, was based on their philosophical understanding. And since it wasn't based on simple emunah, that's why they lost it. It was based on intellectual knowledge. It wasn't based on knowledge of the heart. So that's his opinion. I don't agree because there's a lot of people just fell by the wayside. But anyway, that's what he says. And there were people who believed in that. A lot of people believed that if a person's faith is based on philosophy, then it's very easy to lose it. And I'm going to talk about that. Actually, let me just tell you the opinion over there. So what happened was that a lot of people, through the Rambam's quoting of Aristotle, believed that Aristotle was true. Aristotle became like the one to go to. Because Rambam, more of him quotes Aristotle. And the reason why he quoted Aristotle is because that's what the young people are learning. And therefore he's trying to answer their questions based on their own learning. Mm-hmm. But it's not like he gave Aristotle like preeminence. Chas v'shalom. Mm-hmm. But some people think, since he quotes Aristotle is right. And since Christianity also quotes Aristotle, therefore Christianity and Judaism are very related. And therefore what difference does it make if we're Jews or Christians? I'm just telling you that was the philosophy. So philosophers, they just rationalized everything. Right. So a philosopher can rationalize anything, that's a problem. So that's what happened. That's what Yabbetz is saying, really. But the people didn't have philosophy, they didn't know philosophy, they didn't rationalize, and therefore they just stuck to their Judaism. That's his opinion. We should never know from any kind of nisayon. We shouldn't be tested. We don't know what we're going to do in the times of tests, tribulations. And therefore, we can't even talk about it. It's like the Holocaust. Like, who are we to give reasons for the Holocaust? We're idiots. We don't know what's going on. So whatever we say is going to be wrong. Either way, it's going to be wrong. It's the same thing over here. The expulsion, who converted, who did not convert. If that's, it's interesting. If the sword is put in one throat, and the guy says, "Okay, I'll convert," what's the punishment in Jewish law? What's the penalty? And the answer is no penalty. You can't judge him. The Beit Din cannot judge him. Why can't the Beit? It's interesting. Why can the Beit Din not judge him? Because the Beit Din themselves don't know what they would do.
Right.
How can I judge someone on something that I myself don't know what I would do? It's interesting.
Judaism is so beautiful.
What?
Okay. So beautiful. So that's Rav Chaim Soloveitchik. We talked about that the contradiction of the Rambam. In Sefer Mitzvot, he says to believe in God. In Yesod Torah, he says to know there's a God. He says not contradiction. Emunah begins where Yediah ends. He says belief starts where knowledge ends. So when you get to a certain stage of knowledge, you don't get the whole way, then the rest of it is made up by belief. Okay. And we said the Ramchal, he said at a certain point you have to stop investigating. At a certain point you have to stop investigating because we won't understand anymore. It's impossible to understand God. So you get to a certain point, we got to knowledge, but beyond that you're not going to be able to understand anyway, so don't bother going any further. Certain things you cannot understand. Human beings cannot understand. We have to realize our minds, which we think are so great, are limited. God's mind is unlimited. Our minds are limited. Okay. The Chovat Levavot. We talked about the duties of the heart. It says a person with intellectual capacity should delve into this. But whoever is not intellectually capable should just believe through the listening and accepting the tradition. Rav Dessler comes along. Rav Dessler he was the 1930s. He was a very big teacher in England, and he started the Gateshead Kollel. Rav Dessler, then he eventually moved to Israel, and he made him the Mashgiach of Panovich. He was the Mashgiach of Panovich Yeshiva. Rav Dessler, Rav Eliyahu Dessler, Michtav Meliyahu. I was very lucky. You know why? I studied with 3 of his students, all 3 greats. Rav Arya Carmel, I was very lucky. Rav Suleiman Sasson, who was a Sephardi, he had a private tutor. And the last one was, what's his name? Rav Friedman, who would come to Yeshivat Negev to give Musar every week. So these greats, his 3 students, very, very beautiful people, very special people. I never met him, but I met his students, so you can tell how great he was by seeing the great students he had. So Rav Dessler says, when there's a strong Yetzer Hara, when there's a strong evil inclination, to understand things like Greek philosophy, people need to be able to do more intellectual investigation. When there's no Yetzer Hara of studying philosophy, you don't have to go into such great detail. You just believe in God, that's enough. I know there's a God, I don't need to philosophize. I know there's a God. It's in my DNA, it's in my blood. A person says, I know it's in my God. I know there's a God. My father said there's a God. I know there's a God. I believe my father said. I know there's a God from my own experiences in my life. I know there's a God. Okay. So, these 13 principles we're going to discuss are in the Rambam. Where are they in the Rambam? A person should know where they are. They're in the commentary on the Mishnah in the 10th chapter of Sanhedrin. Thank you. Sanhedrin. Someone's taking notes over here. The 10th chapter of Sanhedrin. It's good to know where this, so you can look it up anywhere you look. And I sent out a link, right? Rose sent out a link. You can download it from the internet. And Esha Torah has got a beautiful series on these 13 principles of faith. You can download it as well. It's free. Everything today is free. The Torah today is free. You can get it anywhere. And if you want to hear this class again, you can go on Torah anytime and listen to it again. I don't know when it's going to be up there, but hopefully within a week or so. So these 13 attributes, these 13 principles of faith are from the Rambam. It's found in the Perush Mishnah of the Rambam. And a person who wants to be part of Klal Yisrael, a person who wants to be a Jew, recognizes a Jew, has to believe in these 30 principles. If he doesn't believe in 30 principles, the Rambam says, Ein lo chelek le'olam haba, has no portion in the world to come. And we sing these 13 principles in a beautiful song called Yigdal. We end up the service. Yigdal is a song based on these 13 principles of faith. Yigdal Elokim Chai, Yishtabach. I believe in God, Yishtabach, I'll praise Him. All these are 30 principles of faith. Okay, so the 30 principles of faith are divided into 3 groups. 3 groups in the 30 principles. The first 5 principles are knowledge of God. Different things about knowledge of God. Beliefs about knowledge of God. Number 6 to 9 deal with the Torah. And number 10 to 13 deal with the reward for a good person. Different rewards for different good people. So 10, 11, 12, 13 deal with the reward for the righteous. We believe that there's reward and there's punishment. We believe that God keeps an account on each person. Hard to know, right? There's a divine IRS, Bar Minan. There's a Lehavdil ben Kodesh Lechob. Right? There's a divine calculator up there which is calculating what a person does. Every day it says a person goes up, their soul goes up and gives an accounting of what they did during that day. And hopefully it's good, more good than bad, and it's kept the scales, whatever, of judgment. A person does teshuvah, they can annul things, so we can do things, we can break decrees with our actions in this world. That's why it's so powerful to be alive. That's why life is so important. Why? Because every second of life a person can do teshuvah and change it to the whole past. Just by believing, a person can outweigh all the scales. It's amazing what we can do in our lives. Just by being alive and breathing and thinking, a person can do 6 mitzvot 24/7. Imagine. Just by thinking, I believe in God, I believe in God, I believe in God. You know, he's getting reward for every time he says that, every time he thinks that. A person can get reward. So a person who's getting through trials to get more reward. But some people have trials in their lives, terrible trials in their lives, sickness and disease and this and that, lose their money, lose their job. And a person says, I believe in God either way, it doesn't make a difference. There's still a God, I believe in God. Why is this happening to me? God, but I believe in you. They get reward. They get much more reward. Why? Because Hashem is testing them. So the Rashi says that question, and the Midrash asks this question: why did God have to test Abraham? Why did God test Abraham? So it says a tanner, when he builds his pots and pans, does not test the soft materials. He knows they're going to break. He tests the tough ones. How hard is it? So Hashem tests only certain people who have the emunah behind them that can survive the test. Sometimes the tests are very hard, and we have to just survive the test. The test is not the test of what's going around. The test is what's going on in your head. The true test is, do you still believe that's the true test? Do you still know there's a God, or you say no, you deny it now? There's no God. So that was the difference between Abraham Avinu and Eov. The book of Job says Job, he believed in God,
Right.
but you ask questions. Abraham Avinu didn't even ask questions. There's different levels of belief. So Abraham Avinu was on such a high level, he never even questioned once. Can you imagine? God said, take your son, your only son, the one you love, go take him to Har Moriah and go offer him up as an offering. And he doesn't even ask a question.
Right. He just does it.
It's wild. Who can be on that level? That's why the greatness of Abraham Avinu, no one can beat it. So let's recap. 13 principles of faith. The first 5 deal with God. 6 to 9 deal with the Torah, and 10 to 13 are the reward. Okay. So there's many Gedolei which I have to talk about when we come back next week. There are many great rabbis who disagree with the Rambam.
No,
This is Judaism. Rabbis always disagree. That's the beauty of Judaism. No one disagrees there's a God. Chas v'shalom. And everyone agrees there's a God. But there's greats who disagree about certainly these 13 principles. So there's 13 principles of faith. Judaism is not dogma. We don't believe in so many dogmas. So why Rambam has 13 principles? Anyway, we have to discuss this when we come back. And thank you all for coming. And we'll continue next week. Bezrat Hashem.